2024 is around the corner, and if you want to crush at Yu-Gi-Oh, this is the video for you. My name's Quinsee. I have over 30 Premier tops, 60 regional wins. If you like this type of content, click that subscribe button. If you have any advice for any player out there that you feel that would help their game and improve their own Yu-Gi-Oh game, comment below with your own suggestions so everyone can read through the comments and add value to the video overall. So you can always come back to the video then and read all the comments that will give you motivation and help towards your next tournament. This video is for the players that want to do well in YCS's, regionals, and even crush their own locals next year. 2024 is around the corner and the season is just getting started. Most of you haven't got your invites yet for the national season, and with that coming up, I'm pretty sure you want to do well. If you're not the type of player that is wanting to win in their big tournaments or win in locals or top regionals, then I probably wouldn't recommend this video for you, because you're probably more of a casual player who just wants to enjoy the game at a non-competitive level. And that's completely fine. But some players out there, which you have to respect as well, actually want to play the game to win. So this video is to help you crush at the game itself. Now, there's quite a few things we're going to go over. First of all, rulings. You need to stay ahead of rulings. There's things that will come up in your testing that you won't know how the true interactions work. Well, when you go to a YCS on the Friday, the head judges have their own Q&A panel, and you literally go up to the table and you ask them the questions that have come up in your testing. So I recommend go in your phone, in your notes, just write down every single scenario that comes up and just put there the questions to ask the judges that you're going to see on the Friday of the YCS. Even if you're confident and positive that this ruling will work the way you think it does, but some of the friends in your testing circle are pretty confident it won't work like that, it's always best to check it, because if there's inconsistencies with rulings in your testing circle, then one of you is going to be wrong, one of you is going to be right, and you'd rather not find out during the tournament, but prior to the tournament. So definitely check it out, because that way then you can just discuss it in your group to give you the best edge for the YCS. Now, you can do this at regionals, and you probably can do this at locals as well. Just find out the judge for the day of the event and go to them before and just ask them the questions. They will always give you the time to answer the questions, usually, unless they are restricted. That's why at YCS they do it on the Friday, because they haven't got any rulings to rule, or they haven't got any stuff to help out with on the Saturday, because usually that's all set up for YCSs. So rulings, definitely stay ahead. It's really important. Now, you need to find a good testing circle. The testing circle is important because you all want to kind of have the same end goal. Now, it's not good to go into a testing circle who just want to play casually, because they're not then willing to make the effort and grind and test or have the same ultimatum at the end of the day. You want to find a group who actively want to win together. And if you all are willing to test and play together and help each other out, in the long run, you're going to grow better as a group than individually. So definitely find a good testing circle. How would you do that? Well, there's many ways to do it, actually. You can go online. You can probably even comment below and ask if there's anyone out there who's looking for a solid testing circle. Then you could create a Discord group and start testing in there. You could either do remote dueling, or you can go on Dueling Book. Definitely would recommend it. It definitely would help you out. Okay, so another thing you need to do is you need to play every day. There's just no excuse. If you don't play every day, you can't grow. The game keeps adapting and changing in many ways. We are constantly getting different ban lists, different cards into the card pool frequently. The game literally changes every week. And even if a card pool doesn't change, the format as we know it changes, because players have worked out a better combo in their deck, which is crushing at a higher level. Then let's look back at the YCS that's just gone on in Italy. Runic Bestial won. However, though, if we look at Labyrinth had the best conversion rate in win rate. That deck is crushing. That was probably the best meta call to take to the YCS. However, because no new cards came out, that deck was just the best meta call for then. So you always have to be actively looking at ways to try and beat the current meta game. Remember, when you net deck or look at a deck online, that deck is built for a previous tournament. It wasn't built for the next event that you're playing in. So if you go online and look at YCS winning deck lists, for example, that deck was specifically designed for the YCS it was just played in. It's not designed for the next YCS. Players would then have caught on to that current, how that deck played, and they might not make certain misplays against that deck because they know what the deck's end goal is. So you just want to be careful of that. Just remember that the decks that you look at online are built for a specific tournament. So you still have to keep adapting and adjusting the deck list that you have built for the deck that you're playing, or for the event that you're playing in the future. Be willing to invest in your success. Now, what do I mean by that? Do I mean go out and spend a lot of money? Not exactly, but that would help you in some ways. If you have a limited amount of money you can spend on the game, no problem. However, though, what is the best way to spend this money? You're probably best finding out what the best deck is before investing your money. So what would you do? Just go in Dueling Book. It's literally free to play. There's no excuse not to play on there. And if you go on there, you can then build every single deck that you want to build, test it, and then before the big event comes up, invest your money then into the cards that you need. Yes, the game can be expensive. There is a reason for that. It's because these cards are sought after, players want them, and they need them for their decks. Some players will say it's pay to win. Well, in some cases it is, and you just have to accept that because that's the game we're playing. You can leave the game if you want to, you just have to suck it up. And if you don't suck it up, then you're always going to be a complainer. Look, yes, SP Little Knight is $100. Cool, but that card is so ridiculously broken. If you don't play it in your deck, you're literally doing a disservice to yourself in the event that you're playing in. Get it. You need it. Everyone knew that card was needed in general anyway, so there's no reason not buying it on release, because the only thing is, players will only realize they need it as the more events it's being played in, so more players are going to keep buying it. There's less product opened of that set later on because the next core set will be out, so that means there's going to be less SP Little Knights on the market towards like national season, and the card's going to be expensive. So SP Little Knight probably won't get a reprint post nationals, which means it's just going to keep going up. I can't see it ever going up more than $150, which is crazy to be honest in general for a secret rare. But I mean, if you have $100 and you haven't got the card, I would definitely get the card. Also, in terms of be willing to invest in your success, you need to play more. You need to put more time into the game, because there's not just money that you're investing in the game, it's your own time. Your time is worth money as well. Your time is worth a value. Invest it into something that you enjoy in. If it's not Yu-Gi-Oh, invest that time into something else, or what you enjoy in anyway. If it is Yu-Gi-Oh, I recommend investing. Like, look, for example, there's many good players out there who constantly grind every single day, and they're working still. They're finding the time and they're grinding, and they're crushing. They are absolutely disgustingly crushing. Do it. When I was consistently playing, I was crushing all the time. I don't play as much as I used to. That's why I'm not doing it. That's why I'm not doing as well. Or, to be honest, I'm not playing in as many events as I used to do as well. And that's another thing that you need to do. You need to also, like, taking the jump first can give you all the success. What do I mean by that? When a new archetype comes out, that usually is the best time to play the deck. The reason why is a lot of players are waiting to see the pro players play the deck in a YCS before investing their money into it. Well, actually, this is the best time to play the deck because less players know how to play against it. The deck is usually the powerfulest at that moment because less players are siding for it. And you'll have the biggest win rate playing that deck in the event. So you definitely want to play that deck in the event because it will give you a huge edge. There's many reasons why you should play a new deck that's released. Like, new archetypes are solid. Like, look at Rescue Ace, for example. When Rescue Ace got the Sinful package, that deck won the YCS. In fact, it finaled. It was a finals. Both Rescue Ace decks were in the finals because the Sinful package gave that deck such a big advantage, whereas before it wasn't as good without that Sinful package. But then you look at the YCS later, more players are now preparing for the Rescue Ace deck, where 2 Unchained decks made the final. So you need to have, you sometimes want to make the jump before everyone else. That will give you a huge edge. You want to play out of your comfort zone. What do I mean by playing out of your comfort zone? When you are in your comfort zone, let's say, for example, you go to locals. You are comfortable at your locals because 1, you play there often. 2, you probably know you've probably spoken to the owner. 3, you know the player base, that you know who goes there. You know the surrounding environment. You're comfortable playing there because you've been there multiple times. But at first, I'm pretty sure you might have been uncomfortable going to your first locals because you didn't know what to expect. That's going to be the same for regionals, YCSs, nationals, even worlds. You just don't know what to truly expect. The more you play in said event, the more comfortable you're going to be there, which means the more comfortable you are, the less mistakes you're going to make. And in the long run, you're going to have a bigger win percentage. So you want to become willing to play out of your comfort zone. So go to more regionals, become comfortable playing in regionals. Go to more YCSs, become comfortable playing in YCSs. If you leave the event learning, and in doing so, you're going to become a better player, which means you've already won in general, which also says that it doesn't matter if you've not topped the event. You shouldn't feel disheartened, even though it is at the time disheartening not doing well. Trust me, I don't like not doing well at events, but if you leave growing as a player, then you're winning because it's going to add value to you. You're going to become a much better player in the long run. And then at the bigger event, at a Y, so let's play you're grinding regionals now, and you're consistently not doing fully well, but you're always consistently growing and learning. It means the next regionals is going to become easier, and the next one's easier, and so on. And then you're going to start winning and topping. Then when you go to your YCS, you're going to feel more comfortable because you're more confident in your ability. However, you still will be uncomfortable in that environment. But again, the more YCS you play, the more comfortable you're going to be. So that's really important. Now, another one is the content you consume. What do I mean by the content you consume? The content you watch and you take in will affect the way you see and play Yu-Gi-Oh! I mean, a lot of content creators aren't targeting competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! So if they're not targeting competitive Yu-Gi-Oh!, if you're consuming that information, you might be consuming incorrect information, which will help your game in competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! Most content creators, I mean, I'm going to say most, and we can all agree on this, they're making clickbait videos that offer no long-term value, except enjoyment. I mean, if you enjoy that type of content, watch it. Of course you can watch it, but just know, taking in certain information can create bad habits and long-term negative effects on your ability to win at Yu-Gi-Oh! So just be careful of the content you consume, because there is some great content out there for competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! Which you can consume and you can do well in. So I definitely recommend considering what content you do consume. Okay? Now, are you there to win or to make friends? Now, what do I mean by that? I'm not saying like just don't make friends. When you're at an event, not every player has your best interest at heart. So, for example, if you're waiting to call a judge on your opponent for slow playing with a few minutes left on the clock, and the judge comes over and you say that your opponent's slow playing, there's nothing really the judge can go off because they've not seen it yet. It's either he says, she says, etc. There's no evidence there. But if you believe that your opponent is slow playing earlier in the match, call a judge, because then there's documentation, there's evidence that your opponent is slow playing. From that point, there's no evidence there, but the judges know that you've made a comment on it, which then the judges will then keep an eye on the match to see how the game is progressing, and then they will then watch if they need to apply any slow play warnings later in the match if your opponent then is playing slow at a later point in the game, which then which gives you a 3-minute time extension during the game. But if you call a judge with a few minutes left, then there's not really much that's going to happen there, except you're going to be unhappy with the way the game's played and your opponent's won. Just don't be afraid to call a judge. That's what I'm saying. The judge is there to let the game play as smoothly and correctly as possible. Trust the judges. The judge program has, I'll be honest, I've been playing the game for a long time, and the judges are getting better and better and better. The judge program is very good for the judges. It's more selective of the judges now. It means you have to have a good history of going in, of being a judge in multiple events before you can even go to a YCS. And then they will select every YCS newcomers for a judge for a YCS, to then they can learn from the other judges who are quite experienced at YCSs, and that's how their judge journey starts at YCS, which then they can work their way up to then become a head judge. A head judge is they're very advanced, and their rulings are very good. So just remember that you want to just give yourself the best chance to win as possible. So don't be afraid or ashamed of calling a judge, because it does feel like there is some negativity in the community when you do call a judge. However, though, only you and your opponent know what's going on. No one else around you really does. So that's where, if you feel like something's going on here, just call a judge. They're there to help you. Also, remember, the clock decides what you can do in a game. So if you don't have long on the clock, if you don't make a play, you could lose or draw in the game. So if there's a few minutes left on the clock and you're about to lose or you're going to draw, you probably want to go for game, and just because you're not going to have, let's say you're setting up a combo that's going to be really good in the next turn, you're not going to see next turn. Okay, so remember, the clock decides what you can do in the game. So it's really important that you do pay attention to the clock, because draws are basically losses. Unless you're in like a 12 round YCS or in a big regional. Like if you go to an 11 round YCS, in this YCS, you can't have a draw unless you have 9 wins, because you need to have 9 wins minimum to top this YCS. So if you have a draw in this YCS now, it's basically a loss. So you might as well have gambled at the point of where you could have gone for game instead of trying to secure a draw for that 1 point. So that's what I mean. If you see a few minutes left on the clock, you might as well go for it. There's no point holding back. Just go for it. So having 9 wins in a YCS, in 11 round YCS, usually secures your top cut. A few players do miss out. I do think they should change the structure where every person on 9-2 should top, and then everyone has a bye if they're first. There's no 64th player, etc. And then it just works like that. So first and 64th, there'll be no 64 players, so first automatically goes to top 32, and so on. So then 32nd plays against 33rd, 31st plays against 34th, and so on. So that means all the players who have a 9-2 in a YCS, which is very hard to do, by the way, will then top. Okay, so it's really important to know that draws aren't usually beneficial. But if you're in a regional, let's say it's a 9-round regional, usually the winner is undefeated, or they have 8 wins and 1 draw. But you'll never see a winner have 7 wins and 2 draws, because that's just not a good enough score. If you have 7 wins and 2 draws, you probably will top 8. If you look at every regional winner, they always have an undefeated score or the draw. So if you do draw one of the rounds in a regional in an early round, don't think it's over for you, because you can actually still win this tournament. I've drawn a few times in regionals, and I've still won because I've won out the rest of the rounds. Because in the last round, if you have like 7 wins, 1 draw, and you're in round 9, you're then playing against the 8-0. If the 8-0 beats you, they have a perfect score of 9-0, and they have 27 points. But if you beat them, you're now 8 wins, 1 draw, and they have 8 wins, 1 loss, which means you overtake them and you should win the whole tournament. And so don't stop. Keep playing, because even if you don't do well in the event, if you keep playing more and more rounds, you're going to keep growing as a player. So if you go to a regional and you start 0-2, cool, you probably have disheartened, but your friends are probably doing well as well. You know, some of them I'm sure are doing well. Just keep playing, keep learning, or just go to the sidelines and test with some of the friends who haven't done well as well, and then just start grinding ready for the next regional. Another thing is always appeal the judge's decision. What do I mean by that? You have the option to always appeal the flawed judge's decision. Not all flawed judges are experienced as other flawed judges, but the head judge is always going to be experienced, or usually the most experienced judge in the room. because they do select the best judges usually to head judge said event. You can always have the right to appeal a judge's decision, but the head judge's is final. So if you call a judge and they come over and you say the ruling, and then they're ruling a certain way and you're not happy with that ruling, you can always appeal the decision. The reason why it's there is so players never feel like the floor judge is being biased against said player. The head judge will then come over, ask what the floor judge's ruling was. They'll go away with the judge. They'll discuss it more in private. Then the head judge will come back. They'll ask for both players' side of the story. And then the judge, well, they'll first ask your side of the story. They'll ask which judge the judge ruled it as. They'll then walk away with the said judge. They'll discuss it. Then the head judge and the said judge will come back. The head judge will then explain the ruling and the reason why they're giving the ruling so both players can learn. And then they'll give you an appropriate time extension given from when the judge was first called, the initial first judge was called. Really do recommend this because even if you're unsure, just appeal. You can't lose, it's a free roll. You're literally getting the time back and the head judge is coming over. Also, the reason why this is good as well is because you can learn more. You can understand why the head judge is ruling in a certain way because they're going to explain it. And you know it's always right then. Okay, there are issues sometimes where the head judge is wrong, but that's a very small minority. And usually, to be honest, the head judge is far less wrong than any floor judge. So it's always worth calling and appealing for the head judge. And the head judge can always overrule the floor judge. Okay. When it gets easy, that's when you push hard. What do I mean by that? When it gets easy, that's when you push hard. When the game feels easier, that's when you start pushing more. You give yourself more opportunity to win. Create more opportunities to win. What do I mean by that? If you play in 5 regionals a year, you're only giving yourself the chance to top 5 regionals in that year. But if you give yourself 10 regionals in the year, then you've got 10 chances to top the regional or regionals. You can top multiple. The same applies to YCSs. If you play in 1 YCS a year and only one, you're only creating 1 opportunity for you to top that YCS. If you play in 5 YCSs a year, you're creating 5 opportunities to top the YCS and even win the YCS. Remember, going to these YCSs, they're a great opportunity to learn and grow because a lot of players there want to win and they want to do well. And the players invest in their decks, so you're playing against better decks in this event. When you go to locals, not everyone invests in their decks. So you're playing against players at locals who aren't playing a deck at the best of ability. So you might win against certain decks, but if they had said card in their deck, you might not have won in general. But when you go to regionals and YCSs, that's where the game gets much better and harder. But it's good in a hard way. I mean, it's good when you're playing against a player who's harder to beat because you learn faster, you learn more. So create more opportunities and then you'll do well. All right, guys, I hope this video helped you. Everyone, time to grind kings because 2024 is around the corner and we're all going to crush. All right, peace.